with us now. Former Vice President of the United States. Just stop it right now, Mika, because he has won a Nobel Prize also.
That's true.
Al Gore is with us. He's the author of the new book, Our Choice, A Plan to Solve the Climate Crisis. Talk about Our Choice.
What is
it
our
presents
choice?
all the solutions to the climate crisis. It's the most serious challenge our civilization's ever faced, and it's the greatest opportunity we have to renew our economy, cut our dependence on foreign oil, something you've talked about a lot. It's crazy for us to keep increasing the amount of oil that we buy from foreign countries when the market's dominated in the Persian Gulf and the Middle East by countries, many of whom are not friendly to us.
But you know, every time they talk about we have to not be dependent on foreign oil, I hear it's going to take us 25, 30, 40 years. It's unrealistic. What do you say to that?
Well, the book is titled Our Choice because it focuses on the key factor. If we choose to switch to renewable energy, sustainable agriculture and forestry, make our economy more efficient, then we don't have to be dependent on foreign sources of oil and carbon-based fuels. And most important of all, we've been putting 90 million tons of global warming pollution every day into the atmosphere, and the global scientific community is practically screaming from the rooftops now saying you got to stop that because it's heating up the planet has a fever, the ice is melting, the storms are getting stronger, the droughts are getting deeper, sea levels are beginning to rise, and the threat is of catastrophic sea level rise. All of us have benefited greatly from the hard work and sacrifices from generations ago. And for us to take all of that for ourselves and tell the future generations, we don't care about you, we're just going to use it all for ourselves, that makes this not a political issue, but a moral issue and an ethical issue.
You know, we're making progress. We showed the front page of the Houston paper this morning. Used to be one of the most polluted cities in America. They're now going to meet EPA standards. And yet I'm driving through Orange County, southern part of Orange County, up to L.A. about a month ago. There's the Houston Chronicle talking about how they're going to finally meet their smog standard. And there is this dense layer of smog. Yeah. I thought it was like 1973. I was looking for the Indian to, somewhere on the side of the road crying.
With the tear.
With a tear coming down. I mean...
But at the same time that Texas has been shifting toward renewable energy, Wall Street Journal reported last week, huge new wind farm, 100% of the windmills made in China with Chinese government financing. They have made a commitment to, they see this as the 21st century opportunity to make the windmills and the solar panels and the enhanced geothermal systems. And we are still locked into these old, dirty, expensive, vulnerable, carbon-based fuels that represent the past, when we have a chance to create millions of jobs here that cannot be outsourced and depend on American renewable energy. That's our choice.
And that the book is called Our Choice. It really should be required reading. I want to get a couple of other issues in here, and the first one is about another former vice president. What do you make of Dick Cheney's comments, his criticism of the current president, dithering
Cheney sent you cupcakes, and you bring up Cheney all the time.
Afghanistan.
I love your shtick, by the way. I mean,
it's horrible.
Go ahead. He has a right to speak out, and I disagree with him. And I think that a lot of Republicans seem to be uncomfortable that he speaks out as much as he does, but he has a right to.
And you disagree with what he said, but do you think the timing was right? I mean, you are a former vice president. There is a certain, you know the weight of your words, right? And especially pertaining to issues that you may have been the architect.
Well, if I can interrupt, I mean, you came out, you made a very strong statement in San Francisco, said some very, very tough things about George W. Bush, one of the first Democrats to do that.
Well, that was at a moment when they were steering the country to take assets away from Afghanistan and go and invade Iraq.
But you had that right, though, right? You should have sat on your farm in Tennessee.
I think that was a mistake. And I think that it's the right thing for President Obama to take the time to do a very thoughtful, in-depth analysis of what our options are here. It's a very difficult situation. And by the way, one of the reasons it is that it borders that Persian Gulf region. And so long as we are so dependent for our entire economic growth pattern on these vulnerable sources of foreign oil, then of course there's a national security interest there. And oil prices skyrocket and devastate our economy. Then when they see us forming the political will to make a choice, then the prices drop back down again. This is a roller coaster that we've been on for a while, and the new discoveries are falling while demand is growing in China and India. So this roller coaster is headed for a crash, and we're in the front car. We got to get off oil and coal and start using American renewable energy and put people to work here.
John Meacham, you have got the vice president on the cover of Newsweek this week.
An apple hitting his head. Sir, what's the historical analogy for the economic shift you're arguing for? You say the crisis is unprecedented, but in terms, as you think historically, what is the most precise example of our shift from one economic way of doing things to the way you would like to see us do them?
Well, Alexander Hamilton, at the birth of our republic, was among those who charted a course to position the United States to lead the Industrial Revolution. I'm not sure it's a precise analogy, but you know, the Declaration of Independence and Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations were both published the same year. And they were both based on a similar model. And the meteoric rise of the United States in world history came because of our commitment to democracy, to trust the people, both in political choices and in economic choices, with the kind of free market philosophy, with government policies restraining some of the excesses. We made a decision to go full bore into that industrial revolution. Now we're seeing a completely new, even larger shift, because with our global civilization, we still depend on these carbon-based fuels that are killing the future. We still have time to stop that, but we have to make a considered, deliberate choice to do so, just as we did during the first years of America.
You've talked about choice, the book's title, choices in the book title. Choice always presents conflict.
Yeah.
And I think in the minds of a lot of people in this country, when they hear people like you and others talk about we could create millions of new jobs, and yet they are living a reality of jobs disappearing, especially in the northern tier of this country, and they fear that the choice, the green choice, results in the one factory in their town that's going to leave.
That's the friction.
What do you do about that fear that comes with choice?
Well,
where are these jobs going to come from? Millions of new jobs.
Well, first of all, what we've seen in an IT-empowered outsourcing world where technologies can be instantly sent across borders, a lot of the older jobs have been migrating to the low-wage countries. But part of what's important about renewable energy is that it's here. And more sunlight falls on the surface of the planet every 45 minutes than is necessary to provide the entire world's energy use for a full year. And the scientists and engineers have gotten a lot better at capturing it, converting it to electricity. Same is true of wind, geothermal energy. And people have seen already how these jobs can be created. There's one example in Ohio, a company called Cardinal Fasteners. They're proud they made the bolts for the Golden Gate Bridge and for the Statue of Liberty. And they went through some tough times. Now they're hiring people back to make bolts for windmills. And we're seeing these jobs. Also, we're so inefficient in the way we use energy, we can save energy and money by retrofitting homes and businesses with better windows, better lightings, more insulation, these new kinds of approaches to energy. And those jobs really cannot be outsourced. They have to be in the local communities. And we need to put people to work to fight the lingering effects of the recession we've just been through.
Mr. Vice President, the New York Times is looking at you, at your dual role as investor and advocate, and they note that a lot of the recent $3.4 billion in Energy Department Department grants went to a company backed by your venture capital firm. I'll ask the question that they put out there. Is there a conflict of interest or even the appearance of a conflict of interest?
Well, no. Of course I invest according to my beliefs and values, and I encourage everybody to do the same thing. I put my money where my mouth is. I've advocated these same policies for more than 30 years, and of course I believe in it. If I didn't, they would criticize me for being a hypocrite.
Can't do anything right.
Hey, let's talk about